Laminitis is one of the most feared diagnoses in the horse world. For many horse owners, just hearing the word is enough to create panic. Because once you've seen a horse suffer from laminitis, you never forget it. The pain, the helplessness, the slow, careful steps, and the fear that every small setback could suddenly become catastrophic. For owners of horses with equine metabolic syndrome, also known as EMS, that fear can become part of daily life. Every spring pasture change feels dangerous. Every unexplained soreness feels terrifying. Every spike in weight raises concerns. But now, brand new research out of the United States is giving veterinarians and horse owners a reason to pay attention. A new placebo-controlled study has found that a drug called Bexagliflozin, part of a class of medications known as SGLT2 inhibitors, may significantly reduce dangerous insulin spikes in horses with insulin dysregulation. And because high insulin levels are known to be one of the biggest drivers of laminitis in horses with EMS, this research could become incredibly important. But before horse owners get too excited, there is also an important warning attached to this conversation. These medications are not miracle cures, and they are not risk-free. Today, we are diving into new research, what it means for horses with EMS, how SGLT2 inhibitors work, why insulin matters so much in laminitis, and why veterinarians are urging both optimism and caution at the same time. Because honestly, this may represent one of the most important developments in equine metabolic medicine we have seen in years. So, what is equine metabolic syndrome? To understand why this research matters, we first need to understand EMS itself. Equine metabolic syndrome is a disorder that affects how a horse regulates insulin and energy metabolism. Most EMS horses have some combination of insulin dysregulation, obesity, or abnormal fat deposits, and an increased risk of laminitis. Some horses develop thick, crusty necks. Others carry unusual fat deposits around the tailhead or shoulders. Many are what owners call easy keepers, meaning they gain weight extremely easily and struggle to lose it. Sometimes these horses can appear healthy for years before serious problems begin. But internally, something dangerous may already be happening. Their insulin regulation becomes abnormal, and that matters far more than many people once realized. For years, laminitis was often blamed mainly on grain overload, lush pasture, or inflammation. But modern research has dramatically changed our understanding of endocrine laminitis. Scientists now know that chronically elevated insulin levels can directly trigger damage inside the hoof. That discovery completely transformed the way veterinarians think about EMS. Because now, controlling insulin is no longer viewed as optional. It is considered absolutely central to preventing laminitis. Laminitis is not simply sore feet. It is an incredibly painful and potentially life-threatening condition. Inside the hoof are tiny structures called laminae that help suspend the coffin bone within the hoof capsule. When these structures become damaged or inflamed, the bond between the bone and the hoof weakens. In severe cases, the coffin bone can rotate or sink. Once that happens, the horse may face permanent damage. Some horses become unable to walk comfortably. Some spend months recovering. Some never fully recover at all. That is why preventing laminitis is such a massive focus in EMS management. Because once severe damage occurs, treatment becomes far more difficult. For owners, the emotional toll can be overwhelming. Many owners of EMS horses live in constant fear of another laminitis episode. Even after recovery, the anxiety often never fully disappears. That is why research aimed at preventing insulin spikes matters so much. because reducing insulin may directly reduce laminitis risk. And that brings us to SGLT2 inhibitors. So, what are SGLT2 inhibitors? They are a class of medications originally developed for people with diabetes. These drugs work by helping the body remove excess glucose through the urine. In simple terms, they reduce blood sugar levels and lower insulin demand. Because horses with EMS often produce dangerously high insulin responses after eating sugars or carbohydrates, researchers began wondering whether these medications might help horses too. Over the past several years, veterinarians and researchers have increasingly explored the use of SGLT2 inhibitors in equine medicine. The results have been attracting serious attention. The newest study focused specifically on a drug called Bexagliflozin. This medication is currently available in the United States and belongs to the SGLT2 inhibitor family. Researchers wanted to know whether it could help horses with naturally occurring insulin dysregulation, meaning horses whose insulin levels become abnormally elevated. So, what did this study find? The study was designed as a placebo-controlled crossover trial. That is important because placebo-controlled studies are considered some of the strongest forms of clinical research. Instead of simply observing horses after treatment, researchers directly compared horses receiving the medication against horses receiving placebo treatment. The findings were significant. Horses treated with Bexagliflozin showed much lower insulin responses following oral sugar testing compared to horses receiving placebo. That means the medication helped blunt the dangerous insulin spikes associated with insulin dysregulation. And that is incredibly important because those insulin spikes are believed to be one of the key triggers for endocrine laminitis. This was not just a major change. The reduction in insulin response was statistically significant. What makes this even more important is that the study does not stand alone. We are now seeing consistent findings across multiple studies involving SGLT2 inhibitors in horses. Different drugs within this medication class are showing similar effects. When multiple studies begin producing similar results, researchers start becoming much more confident that the effect is real. That is why excitement around this research is growing. It suggests veterinarians may be gaining another powerful tool for managing difficult EMS cases. But these drugs are not risk-free. Here is the part of the conversation that absolutely cannot be ignored. These medications are not harmless supplements. They are powerful prescription drugs, and they require careful veterinary oversight. In the study, some horses developed increased triglyceride levels during treatment. That is important because elevated triglycerides can become dangerous in horses. In severe cases, horses can develop hyperlipemia, which can be life-threatening. This is exactly why veterinarians are emphasizing that these medications should never be used casually or without proper monitoring. Before treatment, horses may need blood work, metabolic evaluation, baseline triglyceride testing, and careful assessment of their overall condition. During treatment, monitoring remains extremely important because every horse responds differently. Some horses may tolerate the medication very well, while others may require dosage adjustments or additional monitoring. This is not a one-size-fits-all treatment, and researchers are still learning about the long-term effects of these medications in horses. So does diet and weight management still matter? One of the biggest misconceptions horse owners sometimes develop when new medications appear is the idea that drug replaces management. Veterinarians are making it very clear that this is not the case. Even with medications like Bexagliflozin, proper management remains absolutely essential. That includes carefully controlled diets, reducing non-structural carbohydrates, weight management, forage analysis, restricted grazing when necessary, and exercise when appropriate. Medication alone cannot fully compensate for poor management. Managing EMS can also be emotionally difficult for owners. Many EMS horses are constantly hungry, and owners often feel guilty restricting pasture access or reducing calories. But allowing uncontrolled insulin spikes can ultimately put the horse at greater risk. That is one of the hardest realities of metabolic diseases in horses. Sometimes protecting them means making difficult management choices. So, could this research be a turning point? One of the reasons this study feels so important is because it reflects a broader shift happening within equine medicine. For years, veterinarians focused heavily on treating laminitis after it occurred. Now there is increasing focus on preventing it before catastrophic damage happens. That changes everything. Preventing pain is always better than trying to reverse damage later. As our understanding of insulin dysregulation improves, veterinarians are becoming better equipped to intervene earlier and more effectively. SGLT2 inhibitors may become part of that evolving strategy, especially for horses that continue showing severe insulin spikes, fail dietary management alone, or experience repeated laminitis episodes despite careful care. For some horses, these medications may eventually become life-changing. But the key word is carefully. These drugs are powerful tools, not magic cures. This conversation also connects to a much larger issue in horse world. Horse welfare discussions increasingly focus on prevention rather than simply treatment. EMS is a perfect example of why that matters. Metabolic disease often develops quietly. A horse may appear healthy long before serious laminitis occurs. That means education becomes critically important. Recognizing early warning signs, understanding insulin dysregulation, maintaining healthy body condition, and working closely with veterinarians can dramatically improve outcomes. Now, with emergent therapies like SGLT2 inhibitors, veterinarians may have additional ways to help horses before irreversible damage occurs. That is exciting because fewer laminitis cases ultimately means less suffering, and that should matter to everyone who loves horses. So, what are your final thoughts on this? The evidence supporting SGLT2 inhibitors in horses with EMS is continuing to grow, and the findings are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. These drugs may offer veterinarians another powerful option for controlling dangerous insulin spikes in carefully selected horses. That could potentially reduce laminitis risk and improve quality of life for many horses struggling with metabolic disease. But remember, these medications are not simple fixes. They require proper diagnosis, veterinary supervision, ongoing monitoring, and responsible management. And remember, I am not AI. If you listen closely, you can hear me breathing.